friends, and welcome back to the Movie Babble podcast. I am your host, Nick Kush, and this time on the pod, my prediction, pain. I'm sorry, I had to do it. Off to a rocky start already, but we're doing it.
Rocky start. Yeah.
So this time on the pod, Creed 3 is now in theaters and doing actually incredibly well. It's on pace to outgross Creed 1 and 2 by a wide margin. So with that, we are coming together to celebrate the entirety of the Rocky franchise, from the inspirational heights of Rocky 1 to Paulie may or may not having sex with a robot to Tommy machine gun, all the way through everything. We're here to celebrate it all, laugh at it a little bit, and kind of just talk Rocky. I think it's kind of one of my favorite franchises as a Philly guy myself, so I'm really kind of looking forward to talking through this. But here to help me throughout this entire conversation, in this corner over here, we have Spencer Henderson. What's going on?
Yo. That's my intro.
I like it. I'm here doing boxing puns, Rocky puns. Yeah. This is a great start to this podcast. In the other corner, weighing in at 275 pounds, we have Collin Willis. What's going on, buddy?
Yikes. Ouch.
He's also 6'10". I forgot to mention that. He's fucking Ivan Drago.
Okay.
Did not mean to shame you, Collin.
You can't see it on the audio feed, but I am wearing a red, white, and blue top hat to celebrate this podcast.
I love it. Well, I love the Rocky franchise in many different ways. You know, it kind of does rise from truly inspirational, like heartwarming, like filmmaking, to just unintentional hilarity and just genuinely entertaining sports movies in the middle there. But I'll turn it to you first, Spencer. Kind of like, what are your overarching thoughts about the Rocky franchise altogether?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was always more of a Schwarzenegger guy growing up. I had a cousin who was like my age. He was always more the Stallone person. So I watched all the Rockies and the Rambos and the Cobras and the Cliffhangers growing up. But I always was more into Schwarzenegger's filmography. Like, I watched Terminator at a weirdly young age, and Terminator 2 as well. So I kind of feel like in the 80s, those two were always kind of competing, facing off with who do you like better as the big action movie star. And I was always more of a Schwarzenegger boy, I guess. But yeah, I enjoy the Rocky movies. I think this series is pretty inconsistent, largely. I'll start by saying, like, you were talking about how it's one of your favorite franchises. I personally wouldn't go that far. I do enjoy a lot of these movies quite a bit. But yeah, I'm interested to see how unhinged this gets, how quickly, because I think our lists are going to be like wildly different. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and I guess when I say it's one of my favorite franchises, I would probably say there's two quote-unquote great movies in this franchise. That's as far as I'll go with it. And the large swath of the rest of them I find just very entertaining sports movies, and they're fun and hilarious and wonderful. But I think it is one of my favorites because, as I mentioned before, I'm a Philly guy. I've run up the art museum steps a few times in my life. It's actually not that hard, so Rocky is kind of like, you know, he's not the
it's
most...
at the end of a long run, Nick.
I know. But, it's just... So you grow up kind of with that influence surrounding you, and it's truly, I want to start here immediately. It is truly amazing how my city has a statue of a fictional character in one of its most prominent areas. It's just so baffling, but it kind of also does show kind of how big of a deal Rocky is. And you can make arguments for the rest of the franchise, but in terms of Rocky 1, there are very few movies that have had a bigger cultural kind of impact than that movie. And even talk from workout culture. I have one of my really good buddies talked about how his dad saw the movie in theaters, and people were just in the kind of like in the sides of the theaters doing push-ups and everything and going crazy. Like it was truly like a huge thing. And obviously it kind of created the underdog genre and how basically just created how sports movies work, and it created that format and has kind of gone back to it 8 more times since. But yeah, I love it a lot. How about you, Colin? What are your kind of overarching thoughts with the franchise?
I didn't really grow up with Rocky a lot. I grew up with Rocky 4 was like the on TV movie. Like it was always on like TNT or FX or like those kind of channels.
Every Republican dad's favorite movie, Rocky 4.
Yeah,
it's true. And so that was my exposure to Rocky growing up. And I know I had seen Rocky 3 and Rocky Balboa at some point, but it was like Rocky 4 was really all that I knew about this franchise until Creed 2 came out. And then I just like got into all of them. But I think Rocky has more hits than misses as a franchise. There's definitely a different feel between a lot of these movies, and there are some that I think are a lot like deeper and more well done than others. But then there are others that are just not well done, but my favorite thing ever. So I'm excited to be fully unhinged on some of these rankings.
Yeah, and it was really fun kind of going back throughout the entirety of the franchise. I tried and actually succeeded in watching every single movie in order. And you do see a lot of different things throughout this. Like you do, as Colin, as you mentioned, the consistency is all over the place, but yet it still finds a way to be entertaining in a lot of different ways. But there is like a lot of interesting things about it, and kind of one of the few things that I've really liked about the franchise is kind of how, as much as things change over the years, and also just for these characters, a lot of things stay the same. Rocky ends up at the exact same spot in Philadelphia, hangs out with the same people. You could make the case that Paulie is your uncle that kind of hates the world because he never really lived up to his own expectations in life, and he worked at the same meat factory for his entire life. And there is something, even though as ridiculous as this franchise gets, there is kind of something very sweet and human at its center. And I think they're obviously very earnest movies. They are certainly not winking at you. Certainly not when you think about how silly it gets.
Even when you sometimes think the movie's winking at you, not.
It is absolutely not. And so I think when the movies work, that earnestness really makes them like you are like soaring. You're like, I could like fly right now. I'm gonna fly right now, I guess you could say. Just continuing the puns. And won't stop here. But yeah, I really love this franchise for a lot of different reasons. They're really fun. I think, Colin, you were mentioning like Rocky 4 was always on TV. For some reason, the Rocky franchise always plays on Thanksgiving on like TNT or like one of those channels. Like they just do a huge marathon, which is always really fun. And I feel like I know Creed released on Thanksgiving. I can't remember if Creed 2 did.
Rocky 2 takes place on Thanksgiving, I believe.
Yeah, and then I think the original Rocky is over New Year's, I believe.
It's 4th of July.
I know Balboa was Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rocky
always
1
around the holiday season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really there is something kind of like special about these movies and how they work. It really is like there's kind of like a lot of these movies they couldn't make them anymore just because it's just like a weird alchemy that somehow these movies work in the end. But yeah, any thoughts before we kind of dive into how this is all going to work here?
Nah.
Let's do it. So we have 9 movies across the Rocky and Creed films that we're going to rank here. So all of us came to this podcast with our own personal rankings, and we are all going to take turns nominating movies that deserve to go in specific spots. So this, as been mentioned, this could get really hectic. Colin could love Rocky 5 and put that as his number 1 movie. Who's to say? But yeah, we're gonna have to do a lot of different negotiating. There are a lot of negotiating tactics throughout this to figure out where movies fall, and who knows? We'll see what happens. But I really enjoy this, especially after the M. Night podcast that Spencer and I did last time. I think this is a really fun kind of process to talk about this franchise as a whole. But yeah, I'd say let's just dive into it. So in the number 9 slot, I'm going to give it to Spencer, who will nominate the first movie that deserves to be ranked.
Yeah, I'm kind of two minds with this one. There's the obvious choice, and then there's the choice that I'm kind of like, I kind of also hate another movie in the Rocky franchise. That isn't Rocky 5, spoiler alert. Uh, but I think I'll just do the safe thing, and I'm gonna put Rocky 5 here.
The right
Uh,
choice. It's the right choice.
yeah, like I don't want to start us too hectic and crazy. Um, this movie is kind of just Rocky 2 again in a lot of ways, but way worse. Uh, like we open with a Stallone butt shot, and then the movie just goes downhill from there
Was
somehow.
not expecting that at all.
Yeah,
This was so. This is the only Rocky movie I'd never seen before, and yeah, was not expecting that ass shot in
yeah,
the
they bring
shower.
nudity into the franchise. That and new drawings, which we'll get into maybe. But at this point in the series, the whole "I'm retired" shtick feels so stale that it's like it hits the point where you're just like you stop caring at all in this movie. I think it's kind of it could be interesting to have the Tommy Gunn character be this new person that Rocky like trains, and that part of the movie it's kind of like, oh, okay, like we're going in this kind of new direction. But then of course it just like kind of feels like, oh, we have to have Rocky fight at the end, which I think is a problem with a lot or multiple of these movies.
Hmm.
Uh the main lesson of this series at this point, I feel like, is that if there's a problem, you just have to beat the holy shit out of it. Like you have the subplot with the kid at the school where it's like he's getting bullied, and the ultimate lesson is beat the absolute hell out of these kids and then they'll respect you. And one of the biggest LOLs I got from the series is when the one fight promoter comes and shows up like on the street where Rocky is in the limo, and then it's just conveniently outside of Adrian's pet store where she's working again, and she comes running out and like to stop the whole meeting. Yeah, this movie's just bad. I don't have much more to say about it. It's kind of dull, not fun, uninteresting, etc.
Can I make a quick case for this movie, which I do not think is very good? Um, my my take after watching this, which is I agree, a very not good movie and just pretty boring and bland overall. But I would say that we don't get the Rocky Balboa or any of the Creed movies without this movie. So we have John Avildsen coming back to direct after Stallone directed 2 through 4. And I think this is conceptually, I think this movie does a lot of good things where it's a hard reset on the Rocky character who is like so rich and famous at the end of Rocky 4 where he's just not a person you can empathize with at all anymore. Like
Yeah.
he is legitimately a superhero by the time the fourth movie
Yes,
comes around.
he's a superhero.
So I appreciate how this movie is like we're going to take all his money away. He's going to go back to Philadelphia and he's going to just try to like figure out his family stuff. Um, which I really do admire. And I think that where we could say where the franchise gets a little more emotionally resonant in future iterations, it does not happen without Rocky 5. Like if Rocky is still some rich dude, some rich asshole in his mansion somewhere on the maybe on the main line of Philadelphia, it probably does not. This franchise does not continue to go. But I think when Rocky is a sad sack, it just it just really works. So I
I okay.
admire. Go ahead.
I get what you're saying, but I don't think that's like a testament to the quality of Rocky 5. I think that's a
Oh,
testament
absolutely
to the
not.
quality of the later movies, because it's like, oh, okay, they take what is genuinely a bad movie and they somehow made a sequel to it feel grounded and logical in an interesting way, where it's like, yeah, I do agree. The most interesting thing this movie does is basically strip Rocky of everything, but that's already been covered in Rocky 2 to I think better better degrees of quality.
Yeah, but this movie has Tommy Gunn.
You're not wrong.
Yeah,
No,
he is
I
in
agree
it.
with. I definitely no. I definitely agree with you. I think it's just. I think it's just conceptually. I think this idea isn't as bad as people want to give it I guess when like I feel like when you talk about like bad sequels, I think Rocky 5 is like up at the list, top of the list, and I don't think it's quite there. I think it does some things that are like somewhat interesting and just doesn't capitalize on them at all. And also Stallone is just fucking terrible in this movie. He is so bad. He is like a child. Like I don't know what he's doing in this movie. It's really, really bad. But you know, I just to kind of appreciate it laying the groundwork for what's to come. You know, it's the necessary reboot, or not a reboot because this thing gets rebooted 10 different times, but it kind of gets us back onto like an even playing field in that sense. So that's all I got. That's the only thing I can say good about it because the rest of this movie kind of sucks.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean a little bit more towards Nick on this one. I fully agree with Rocky 5 being number 9 on the rankings. And I think this has just horrid execution in terms of anything it's trying to bring to the table. But I do think that this brings more to the table than a particular movie I don't want to spoil yet. And even like I kind of do like that hard reset. Even if it does feel very forced and awkward in the first like 10 minutes of the movie. And they just kind of blame it all on Polly, and they're like, all right, so we're done with that.
It's always Polly's fault. Yeah.
And I think there could have been something more interesting with like Rocky's son and surrogate son in this movie. But it was, you know, those two arcs are so separated for most of the movie. And the fact that Rocky doesn't really have like a dog in the fight, like an antagonist to really challenge him as the story goes. Like Rocky's just kind of along for the ride in a lot of this movie until the very end where he's like, well, I got to do a street fight now. Which is just an absolute bonkers way to basically end the franchise at this point.
No notes. Incredible.
And I think like, yeah, I think Tommy Gunn gets most of the flack, and he should. I don't think he's the franchise's worst antagonist, but he's pretty close to that.
Yeah, he's pretty close, but he's not the worst.
I think a better script makes his character turn out better.
Yeah,
I agree with you, Collin. Like I think there are like if you look on the page, well, maybe not on the page because you read the script and you're like, what the fuck is Stallone saying here? But like if you think like the outline of the movie, like the bullet points, there's a good script that could be made out of this, but then yeah, we have a 10-minute diversion about Rocky's kids' nude drawings and all that, and then Stallone like ups his stammering to like 11.
It sounds like somebody's dad doing a bad impression of Rocky.
It really is. It's like he had years of like SNL parodies at this point, and he's like, all right, well, I'm gonna do that now. I watched it, I was like, what the fuck is he doing in this movie? It is really bad.
So weird.
Because the Rocky character is a really fine line of, you know, he's just not a smart guy. But in the first Rocky, he has like a ton of humanity, and he's like just a very like charming and like just really well drawn out character, and he has all his little quirks. Yeah, he's very wholesome. He's got his turtles. He just wants a girlfriend. He wants to make something of his life. Yeah. But here, Stallone he's jumped the shark. It's very, very bad.
Here's my Rocky 5 hot take, though. I think that Sage Stallone turns in a better performance as Robert than Milo Ventimiglia does in Rocky Balboa.
Ooh.
Interesting.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Neither one of them is terrific, but I think there's a better job at acting being done here than I felt watching Rocky Balboa.
You liked his earring a lot? His earring looked really good to you when he broke bad for a second in the second act.
The earring and the cigarette. Yeah.
When he punches the kid and then they're all just watching TV the next scene.
It's great.
Yeah, dude, the scene ends with the bully saying, hey, you're all right, dude. Like, after he gets the shit beat out of him. It makes no sense. I feel like we've spent too much time on Rocky
We have.
5.
I was about to call it. We've spent too much time on Rocky 5. It's not very good. But interesting in a lot of different ways. But that's in the number 9 spot. So at the number 8 spot, I'm going to turn it to Collin. Which movie do you think should go here?
Here's where things are probably going to get a little unhinged, but this is where I'm going to put Rocky 4. Rocky 4, I think, is the most iconic Rocky by most standards. Like, I think when people think of Rocky, they think of like scenes from this movie. They think of if he dies, he dies. You know, like the entirety of the Creed franchise is kind of pivots around, you know, Apollo Creed's arc in this movie. Um, but I think this is the most flash in a Rocky movie with the least amount of substance. It's a really short movie too. Most of these clock in around like an hour 50, 2 hours. This one's like right at an hour 30. And I just don't think there's a lot here. I really like Apollo's arc in this movie. I think you get just, I think Carl Weathers does a great job with Apollo in all four of the movies that he's in. But I think they do really interesting things in here to the point where I'm more interested in Apollo in this movie than I am in Rocky. And part of that is just like the decadence that is Rocky and the robot that's just wandering around hitting on Polly. And like it's flashy, but a lot of this movie is just montage. I mean, there's a nearly 5 minute long driving scene where Stallone is just flashing back to other movies.
It's my favorite scene. It's so bad. It's and like the music is I don't even know if there's a way to describe it in this movie, but it is so bad. It's like the ultimate like late 80s power ballad. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's so bad. And yeah, he goes on a very sad drive for 5 minutes and thinks about all the bad things that have happened to him, and then it just abruptly stops and he goes to Russia.
So this is the only Rocky movie of like the Rocky movies without Bill Conti, and I feel like that's a huge part of it because he was busy making Karate Kid sequels. I do really like Hearts on Fire, and I think that is the song that Eye of the Tiger could have been if it hadn't been just kind of memed to death in other movies over the years. But Hearts on Fire is the song that makes me want to just like go to the gym and just lift everything.
So, Spencer, do we agree with this?
No, absolutely not. Over my dead body.
See, this movie isn't good, but I love it so much. It's so wonderful. The most America fuck yeah movie ever made.
This, Nick. Don't stand for this.
So okay. So is this is number 8 on your personal list, I assume, right, Collin?
Yeah.
So where's it? Well, for me, where's it for me? It's my 7, which kind of shows you how I feel about it. I think. So, do we spoil where it is on your list, or how do we do this? How do we figure this out, Spencer?
Let's just say it's higher on my list. It's higher than number 8 and number 7. So if we can just get it even a couple slots higher, then I'll reveal where it is.
Or what would you put in its place? What would you recommend here instead?
You want me to show my hand?
Here's your rebuttal. Yeah, what's your rebuttal?
Okay. I genuinely hate Rocky Balboa, and I think it belongs here.
Interesting.
I almost put Rocky Balboa in last place.
Rocky Balboa is my number 8 as well.
Okay.
So there we go. Collin, your thoughts?
Rocky Balboa is way higher on my list.
Fuck. What are we gonna do here? Oh God, I feel like we just have to split the difference here somehow. So okay, so
maybe
Spencer,
pick something that's not Rocky 4 or Rocky Balboa.
So or Spencer, I think we have to spoil it. So where's Rocky 4 on your list?
It's number 2. I love Rocky 4.
That's incredible.
I really thought long and hard about this. This is about favorites. It's not about what's the best.
I'm going to use that quote a little bit later on when we get to my top 3.
Okay.
So, Collin, where's Rocky Balboa on your list?
Rocky Balboa is number 4 on my list.
Well, by the transitive property, I don't know if that's actually the transitive property. But definitely not. But this isn't a math podcast. I would say that we all have, like, if you add it all together, I would say Rocky 4 is a little higher on all of our combined lists than Rocky Balboa. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Do we do that? So should we do Rocky Balboa at 8?
If you insist.
I'm fighting the
Man.
good fight for you, Spencer.
The character
Thank
of
you.
Robert Balboa has taken some big L's with these rankings.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, what is there? So we'll lock in Rocky Balboa at 8. We'll do that. I feel like that's a decent compromise.
This is going exactly how I wanted so far.
That's good. I like it. So we'll do that. Sorry, Collin. Hate to do it to you.
There are
But
Rocky
yeah.
Balboa fans out there, and they'll hear this and they'll outrage for me.
So my take on Rocky Balboa is that I love everything that isn't boxing related, and I think the boxing related stuff sucks. Is my take. He is just so old. I don't mean to be ageist, but man, my guy, he's so old. He's so old. It's so unbelievable that he'd be fighting the heavyweight champion of the world. It's ridiculous. I just kind of want him to just chill in his restaurant and tell people about the good old days and help what's her face with her house and her son. That's kind of all I want. Every time that's happening in this
Marie?
movie, is that her name? I don't remember.
Yeah.
I just remember her as the creepo girl. Yeah, every time there is like something non-boxing related in this movie, I think it's really sweet and really touching. And Stallone actually gives a very good performance this time around. But yeah, I don't know. The boxing kind of sucks. It really does suck. I will say they brought in, like, this is like the first movie to bring in the HBO sports kind of bit to this, so they actually filmed the last fight like it's like you're watching on HBO on pay-per-view.
They filmed some of the last fight like that, Nick. The last fight is crazy in terms of editing. There's so many different styles it's trying to do.
The montage bits of it are crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't. He just shouldn't have fought in this movie. He's just so damn old. God.
Yeah.
He's old. He's like 60 years old with this movie. Damn.
And there's Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if he was 50 years old, I'd maybe believe it. But my God, he's old.
He's 50. So they like say the words he's like in his 50s during the press conference. But yeah, he does look like he's in his 60s.
In his 50s, with the S is doing a lot of work there.
Yeah,
he's doing a lot of work. Sorry, Collin, go ahead.
It's like, and that's one of the things I'll agree with on this movie is like he doesn't ever really get a compelling reason to fight in this movie. Like, this is the third time, and so this is the third Rocky movie to use the "I'm too old, I'm not fighting anymore," and then he gets back in and fights anyways. I know this would be the fourth because every movie since Rocky 3 uses that plot, but in this one he's just like, I was kind of bored and I didn't know what to do, so I applied for a license. And then he like gives his speech and then they let him fight. But I also think that Mason the Lion Dixon is the worst antagonist of this franchise.
Oh, he sucks.
Easily.
And it's like, it's what they're trying to recreate, like the Rocky Marciano Muhammad Ali fight or dream fight from the 70s. And so I feel like this is where you need an antagonist like Apollo Creed, who's just this really charismatic, like very cocky person who like everyone loves and is kind of the greatest, to go against Rocky, who's more of like the hardened, like old guy. And they just have this guy who has this and this alone as his acting credit. And he is a real boxer. So I feel like that's credit to him, but there's just no personality to Mason. And there's nothing to like draw you as the audience or Rocky as a character into that specific fight. And I feel like that's where the movie really falls apart. But I do like all the things that are just like Rocky wandering around Philly and being, the sad, like nostalgic Rocky that he's kind of become. Because I do think it returns to a lot of what made Rocky and Rocky 2 work really well. It's just that kind of goobish Rocky. But he's not as confident and like adult as he's supposed to be in like Rocky 3, 4, or 5. And so I do like the way they return him to his roots in that. But yeah, Mason is just so bad. It's such a hilariously bad name.
I do it. I feel like, so what they're going for, right? Like he's supposed to kind of suck because he's in the time of boxing where like the field is like pretty weak. And so he was just kind of the champion by default. And like they mentioned when the last fight starts that he's kind of out of shape. So he's supposed to suck a little bit, but yeah, he's just, he's not a professional actor, and that's part of it. And I do appreciate how this franchise kind of like swings more towards like boxing realism rather than like good acting. Maybe until Creed 3. We'll get to that with my boy Jonathan Majors. But he's just not interesting. Even with, I think they try to build it into his character that he kind of sucks, but it's just not. I just don't care at all. And yeah, Mason the Lion Dixon. Just like, what are we doing? what is happening?
I can't say or hear that name with a straight face.
Which is worse,
Yeah.
Mason the Lion Dixon or Tommy Machine Gun?
Mason the Lion Dixon.
Okay, that's where I was going to. Just wanted to put it on the record.
Yeah, I'm way more negative on this movie than you guys. This movie feels like, to me, do you guys know the character Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite?
Yeah.
It feels like he wrote and directed a movie that's just like all about, oh, remember how great the past was? Like, even down to the movie being like, the sport of boxing sucks now. Everybody wants Rocky. It feels like the Sylvester Stallone vanity project to me. There's some good character stuff, like, but I feel like this movie is completely negated by a later entry in the franchise that like does everything this movie does but way more interesting and better. And I agree with Nick, all the boxing stuff in this movie is genuinely terrible. Like, the central premise setup of the boxing match with like the weird, simulated boxing match that's like
it's so goofy.
CG. Yeah, it's so silly. And it just like, that's the thing, is the movie is acting like it's this dead serious, completely earnest kind of Rocky movie, but then you have the central conflict set up in such a literally cartoonish way that my suspension of disbelief is just on the floor. Like, I really dislike this movie. I honestly think it might be the worst of the franchise for me.
That's rough. Yeah, it's. Yeah, the boxing sucks. I think Stallone. He's like, I like older Stallone, but where he's just like the world. He's down on the world, and I mean, obviously Creed. It's a better version of that in Creed. But I do really like that version of the character. And yeah, I kind of just like him hanging out. I truly wish like this was just he was like doing good deeds for people in his community.
Same.
And that was it.
Yeah.
Like, that would be actually sweet and also thematically consistent, where he's just trying to make something of his life. Obviously now that Adrian's gone and everything like that. So but yeah, Collin, I feel like you like this movie a lot more than us. So what are the things that you genuinely like about it that put it on higher in your list?
For me, I genuinely like kind of the things, not to echo like what you guys are saying, but I think those down to earth moments with Rocky where he's just like reconnecting with the people around him. I think this is my favorite of Burt Young's performances as Paulie. Because a lot of
It's
the
really
times,
sad.
yeah, a lot of the times, like take Rocky 4, for example, he's just kind of the butt of the joke after the first two Rocky movies. But I feel like in a lot of ways, this returns Rocky to something that feels a lot more familiar to the character as he was seen in Rocky and Rocky 2. Because if you watch this franchise in order, there's a big difference in Rocky as a character between the second and third movies. And then they kind of follow that new, like, updated, fancy I have money now version of Rocky. And like he loses his accent a lot in Rocky 3 and Rocky 4 before it comes back in Rocky 5. And so I like the ways they really like return him down to earth, and they kind of reconcile with like who Rocky was, to this neighborhood originally, and like what that legacy means. And he just wears his heart on his sleeve in this movie. And I feel like you get a lot more out of Adrian as a character having had her pass away than we had with her in Rocky 4 and Rocky 5, where she's just basically like, don't do this. Yes, do it, Rocky. I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what pushes Paulie to be such a...
that.
Yeah, I think that's what pushes Paulie to be just such a more interesting character in this movie. He's a lot more grounded, and it really is heartbreaking. That scene where he walks into the diner and he's got a black eye and just half a cow he throws on the counter, and just like watching what he's become when he and Rocky are in the van and they're going and they're touring all of like the first date scenes, and he's just crying almost about how you have all these happy memories and I don't have anything. I think it's just just kind of breaks you up inside. And then I think like the motivational moments of this movie work really well, particularly like the stuff with Rocky and with Robert. There's that big scene where he's yelling at him outside the restaurant about, you're blaming this on everybody, and it's not about
It's about how hard you can get hit or whatever. How does it go?
and keep moving forward. Yeah. I remember in high school I would watch that speech like anytime I played a sport. I was like, you're right, I can do this. I do think that inspires one of the worst moments in this movie, though, where Rocky flashes back in the middle of the fight to words that he said to someone else instead of like something that inspired him that someone else said. I just think it's really goofily done in that moment. But yeah, I think the heart of this movie carries it past its weaknesses and past the fact that Mason is just kind of incredibly uninteresting anytime he's on screen.
Yeah, Mason the Line Dixon, great champion.
The champion.
Yeah, I'm very conflicted on this movie. There's parts of it that I really like, and then I just don't care about anything boxing related at all. And then Stallone's hair is clearly dyed black, and it's very noticeable. My guy's just old. I don't know what else to say.
My other favorite part is when they're like going through his training routine and they're like, well, you can't do this, you can't do this. He's like, running's out of the question. And then it cuts and he's just like doing the usual Rocky run.
That was the only time he ran throughout the training process. That was it. All right, should we move on? Let's do it. So
Please.
That was our number 8. And so we're at our number 7 now, which is, I feel like after we just bulldozed Collin's wish there at number 8, I feel like we have to put Rocky 4 at 7. I think that's a good compromise for all of us. Does that work?
Yeah, yes. That's fine.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So Rocky 4, the thing we've alluded to quite a bit already, it's incredibly entertaining. Out of all the Rocky movies, it's probably the one I've watched third most, maybe, probably.
Okay, the second half of that statement went way different than I expected. You're like, true. Out of all the Rocky movies, it's the one I've watched the third most.
It's out of all the Rocky movies, it's the one I feel the most okay about, and nothing. Yeah. I didn't really set myself up for success there, but yeah, I like this movie a lot. It's not actually good, but man, is it hilarious to watch. I love so much of it. Yeah, Paulie just fucking that robot, just, it's wonderful. They're just him, just, this is truly like the vanity point for, well, you could say Rocky 3 is definitely like a big change in how the character of Rocky appears, because by that point, Stallone is a star, and I think Rambo is coming out the same year. So he is like a bona fide A-lister. And then Rocky 4, it's like literally all of the edges of Rocky have been shaved off, and he's just Stallone on steroids. But yeah, it's just, this movie's hilarious. Like, everything about how much this movie hates Russia is so funny and so wrongheaded in so many different ways. It's just, yeah, it's 90 minutes of montage that are all hilarious. Like when he is in Russia and pulls Drago's photo off the mirror and it's his face directly behind it, I just cry in tears every single time. Yeah, it's so funny.
So good.
And then Spencer's so angry.
It's a fucking masterpiece.
And then him just yelling Drago on the top of the mountain, just incredible stuff. Yeah, I feel like
it's downright Shakespearean.
You know what? I've set it up. Spencer, why don't you just take the lead here? What's so great about Rocky 4?
I mean, this movie is like everything I should despise. Like, it's very jingoistic, which I'm usually not.
Oh yeah,
not a fan of.
This makes like Lone Survivor look like an anti-war movie or something.
Yeah, for real. It's heavily inspired by like Reagan era politics in the United States of America. Yeah, and yeah, it's ridiculous. The whole movie, like Collin said, is like a montage, but it's like I view all those things as like positives in this case for some weird reason. Mostly because I think we're so far detached from the first Rocky movie at this point that this is like the first time I feel like it like truly embraces what audiences are going to the movie for at this point, like at this point in the franchise. This actually isn't gonna be the last time I reference this movie, but in the movie Barton Fink, the Coen Brothers movie,
Did not
Barton
think this was
Fink-
coming up today.
yeah. Barton Fink is constantly alluding to the fact that he wants to write a movie for the common man, which is, you know, like he thinks is like the blue collar kind of working class American person. And this is a movie that feels like what Barton Fink should have wrote if he was going to write something truly for like the common audience members. Yeah, there's just something about this movie's tone that feels like surreal and so stupid infectiously, but I love it. Like I just have such a good time watching this movie. And so it's like, yes, there are movies that I ranked below this that are like, I hate this word, but basically objectively better, like on a filmmaking level. But I just enjoy watching this movie so much more that it's like, yeah, if I'm gonna turn a Rocky movie on, it's gonna be Rocky 4, just because it's hilarious. So yeah, I love it.
It's a really inspired pick, and you know, if you can change, and I can change, we all can change. What is it? I think that's how it goes.
I'm pretty sure that's
Close
verbatim.
No, it's
Yeah,
I have it up. It's if I can change and you can change, everybody can change. You know, it's a really good message. The Cold War is now over.
Yeah, he like physically beats communism in a fight. Like, what more do you want from a movie?
The best part is when the Russian president just like stands up and starts clapping.
Yes,
It's the funniest shit I've ever seen. He's like, "Oh my god, this is like democracy, incredible."
Yeah, he turns Russia capitalist in the Rocky universe.
Yeah, he gets all of Moscow to cheer for him.
Yeah, it's the best. I love it so much.
I do think that Apollo Creed coming down like from the ceiling to living in America is the greatest thing ever.
So good. Did we rank this a little too low? I feel like we ranked this a little too low.
Way too low, Nick. I've been trying to say that.
You know,
it's fine.
I wrote it down in Sharpie. I'm sorry. We can't change it now. It's too late.
Holy shit.
Nick is actually pro Ivan Drago.
Yeah, you know, he had a lot of good points in the 12 words that he said. A lot of good ideas. It is just every little bit of this movie is just it's so funny. It's so wrong-headed in so many different ways, and you know, it's just like even in like the third act, like they're basically just wrestling each other. Like that's one of the other things. A quick kind of aside here that there are so many disqualifications in these fights because people are like throwing each other into like the corners. It's so funny, but especially in this movie, like Drago is like picking him up and throwing him around. It's so good. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's 90 minutes of pure bliss that I think is pure bullshit, but also the greatest thing I've ever seen. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, you have to view this movie as like a time capsule. I'm not trying to say, oh, this is like, but this movie weirdly is like a perfect metaphor for like American foreign policy in the 1980s. Like
it really is in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you just like it's a product of its time, like of the highest degree. And I just like I don't know, I feel kind of the same way that how the Star Wars prequels are kind of this like surreal view of the Iraq War. That's how this like is as well. Like it's just like so interesting to me. Like I find this movie just fascinating to watch and entertaining. So it's like two things that I love when I watch a film.
I just imagine Stallone like writing this and being like, oh, get the political commentary in this movie is so great, really incisive. This is the one they'll remember me by.
And it is the one they remember by.
Yeah, you know, it's true. Yeah. Like I said, it's every Republican dad's favorite movie. So it's truly baffling, but just so wonderful. And there's the you know, he's doing his sit-ups when he's hanging over the end of the barn, and I'm like, Polly could just drop him at any second. It's terrifying. No, I love it. And I love the part where in the training montage where they're going back and forth between Rocky and Drago, and then like Rocky is like running up the mountain, and then they just cut to Drago getting injected with steroids. It's so funny. Oh my god!
I love how you started that by saying I love the part in the training montage. Like there's only one training montage in the entire movie.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. But it is the training montage.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah. But it is. Oh, that's so good. It's so funny. I love it. Any other Rocky 4 thoughts? Did Paulie really fuck that robot?
He did. It had to have happened.
He did.
Yeah. It's like
in
one
the
of the
Rocky verse. He's a trailblazer in terms of
the funny thing is that's like one of the few moments in the Rocky franchise that Paulie is happy. So
yeah.
I don't know what that says, but man, rough life for that guy.
He would have loved Megan.
That's great. Yeah, really fun movie. I'll be watching this like way more than like the next couple movies that we say here, but they're definitely better movies. So we'll move on here. We'll go to number 6, which I think takes us back to Spencer. So Spencer, what do you have in the number 6 spot?
Well, I don't know how this is going to go, honestly. I don't know what you guys think of this movie, but I propose we put Rocky 2 here.
Oh,
interesting.
Where did I have this? I'm all right with that. I'm okay with it.
So
what do you think, Collin?
I also have Rocky 2 at 6, but I have another movie we haven't talked about yet at 7, so I'm not sure how that figures out.
Well, what is that one?
If it's the movie I'm thinking of, then please no.
So at number 7 I have Creed 2, and then I have Rocky 2 at number 6.
Okay.
I have Creed 2 just one slot under this, so 5.
So I think we do Rocky 2 here.
Yeah,
seems to be the.
So Nick,
I have Creed 2 at 6.
Okay, and you have it there too, Collin?
So I have Creed 2 at 7, Rocky 2 at 6.
Okay. I could go either way. Like they're interchangeable to me. So what do you guys want to put here?
Fuck it, let's do Creed 2. Let's do it.
Okay.
I feel good. I like this because I actually just rewatched. This was actually the last movie I watched, and I like it. I don't have the same. I don't really have an emotional attachment to it, even besides saying like that's just like a well done, not great, but like very like just solid sequel in a franchise. It's funny that we're putting this here too, because obviously he's fighting like son of Drago in this one, which is fun. What is his name? Ivan Drago? That's what it is.
Yeah,
Ivan. Yeah.
So yeah, a fun little parallel there. But yeah, what's your take on Creed 2, Spencer?
It's okay. That's basically where I land. Like,
great take.
We haven't come on Creed yet, so we haven't landed on that and on the list yet, so you can assume I like it better than this movie. And so what I have to say is when I went and saw this movie, I felt kind of disappointed just because of how awesome Creed was. Like, this is a solid movie. It's entertaining. It's like a weirdly grounded sequel to maybe the most ridiculous movie in the franchise, or not even maybe the most ridiculous movie in the franchise, and it grounds the Dragos in really interesting and unexpected ways, I will say. I don't think really any fight in this movie is all that memorable, especially after it's following up a film in the franchise that has a couple genuinely incredibly executed fight sequences. Yeah, it's good. Like it's fine. That's where I land on it.
I kind of like the last fight. The last fight's fun. I don't know. Yeah, I just kind of like that. I just find that Creed is just like, he's just like yelling. He's like willing himself to like keep fighting. I was like, yeah, that's pretty fun. Yeah, I'm kind of with you where it is hilarious that it is like a very like not stripped down, but it is like a very like straightforward and like almost like subdued retelling or like extension of Rocky 4 in a lot of ways. I totally forgot this movie starts in Kiev, which is just really interesting to on rewatch, you know. But I will say, like, kind of what you were mentioning earlier about the movie kind of grounding the Dragos. I actually think that's probably my favorite part of this movie, where they really do play, and it's really not talked about a lot. It's a lot of just like how people move throughout frames, where they're really showing how Russia just does not care about these people, and they're only using them for kind of their own self interests, and they're kind of people without a country, and it's very 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 thoughtful. Well, not very very thoughtful. It's interesting. I'm not going to say it's the most like Rocky 4. I'm not going to say it's the most
a piercing exploration.
It's not the best political commentary I've ever seen in a movie, but it definitely has more thought than I was kind of expecting there. But yeah, it's just pretty good. And you know, Stallone wrote this one after Coogler and his writing partner did the last one. And you know, Stallone, not the best writer around. I think he's good with structure, like he understands how things should work, but the particulars, and it's kind of where he gets in trouble a little bit. And there's a lot of scenes in this where it's very static, just people like, all right, we have to go into this room now to talk to each other. And they're very like unimaginative scenes that are acted pretty well, but they're not like the most like well imagined when you kind of compare it to Creed, the original Creed. Yeah, Collin, what are your thoughts on Creed 2?
Yeah, so I think for me, there's a pretty big curve between everything like from here on up and the ones we've talked about already. Whereas like I don't really dislike any Creed 2 or anything above it. I actually liked this more the second time I saw it, which was a week or so ago, which I thought was kind of interesting because I saw it in theaters back in 2018 and was like, okay. And I actually enjoyed it a little bit more the second time. I agree with the points on the Dragos. I think they're really interesting characters to try and humanize 20 years later. Or 30 years later. Is that how far out we are?
I don't know. 25? Who knows?
It's like 30. Yeah.
We won't be looking it up at all.
And I think the film's most interesting segments, at least its most unique, tend to come from reframing that and looking at them as these like expendable and thrown out assets that Russia doesn't really need anymore. On the other hand, I think it does the least amount of surprising things with Creed's supporting cast. I think you're just kind of going through the typical beats with Bianca and even with Creed's mom. I think this is the weakest of Felicia Rashad's work in the three movies, and it's just she doesn't really have much to do in this movie, where she's a really strong supporting figure in 1 and 3. I feel like the pregnancy thing, it just feels like a very stereotypical way to announce a pregnancy in a movie. And you know, I do like what they do with Bianca's hearing loss and how that impacts the baby. And I think that brings some really interesting things in this movie. And then again in Creed 3, whenever we get to it. So I guess my takes on this are kind of like Nick's opinion on Rocky Balboa, is I like this movie more when there's not boxing going on. Because the boxing formula for this movie does feel really predictable. Like he loses the first time. There's not a doubt in anyone's mind what's going to happen in the rematch. I do really like the training montage in this movie. I think it's one of the best montages for training in the franchise. I just love him out there in the desert, like running against Rocky's car and just beating stuff with a hammer. I
like the part where he's doing the neck neck lifts, whatever the fuck he's doing. I guess he's bracing for like when he gets a headshot, and he's got a strong neck now. Don't know how that works, but sure.
And I like the way they parallel that with Ivan and his training routine, and like where his dad's literally trying to like run him over with the car, and it's like you don't stop, the car stops you, or so he says something really weird like that. The way that they like give him more training than just steroids and show that he's like actually competing for something in this movie too.
He's doing it the real way this time.
And I think it is surprising in the way that like the mom is major, or the Drago's uh elder Drago's ex-wife and the younger Drago's mom is a character, even if she's not a lot. I like the way that they kind of like use her to show what the country as a whole just kind of did to the two of them. So I think that's really interesting. I think there are a lot of interesting things in this movie. It just doesn't do them all as surprisingly or as intimately as things were done in Creed.
Yeah, it's missing. I think it's on rewatch. I was surprised that Ludwig Göransson came back to do the score, but I think definitely a step down in terms of his score. Like he's doing
Massive step down.
like a guitar thing, and it's like trying to be
Yeah.
like softer and like more subdued as we mentioned, but it's just that it saps a lot of the energy. Like I feel like if you would cut and paste almost the exact same score as Creed, I think we feel a little differently about this movie. Is my take on it. Like it really needed a little extra energy because it doesn't. It does feel like it's trying to be a little too self-serious with the material. But I like it. I like the fights a little more. I think they're fun. I kind of like just Creed just getting the shit beat out of him at in the last scene, getting knocked down 3 times. I thought that was pretty fun. And then Drago throwing in the towel. That was good stuff. I liked it. I'm a fan.
I feel like Ludwig was busy with Black Panther around this time, and so this was just
Probably.
like the after project.
This was the temp score, and he's like, he overslept, and he's like, oh fuck, I forgot to write the Creed 2 score, and just gave him the temp thing or whatever.
It feels that way for sure.
Yeah, not one of his finer works, but I love that guy. He's great. I'd say we move on from here. Let's go to number 5. So I think that puts us back to Collin. What would you put in the number 5 spot?
So I'm gonna go with what was my number 6, which is Rocky 2.
Yes. Good.
I'm all right with that. That was my 4, so I'm okay. But I'm okay with that.
So we all in agreement on Rocky 2.
I definitely agree with this.
Yeah, let's do it.
Definitely agree.
So Rocky 2 and Creed 2 were 2 that I'd only seen once, and that my opinions went up a little bit on each of them this go round. And maybe I've just matured as a film enjoyer. But yeah, I do really like Rocky 2. I do really like Creed 2. I just don't think they're on the same level as everything else. I think Rocky maintains a lot of the goobishness, and it's really interesting to see him on top of the world, and yet like nowhere further from where he started in Rocky 1, where he has all this money that he blows in an afternoon, and then he's just like, nobody wants to hire him, nobody wants to see him as anything else. They just want him to go be a punching bag. So I think those elements of things are really good. I like a lot of Adrian's just material in this movie, and I really like, as cheesy as it is, the proposal scene where they're at the zoo. I think it's just like
with the tiger in the background. It's a really cold tiger, by the way. I don't know if that's good for them, but anyway,
it was warmed by their love.
Beautiful stuff.
But I think it's just the most like heartfelt, goobish. I think it encapsulates Rocky so much in that moment, and I think that this movie as a whole just has a lot of really good moments like that. I really like everything in Apollo. In this movie, there's definitely a lot more build up to like that rivalry, because now Apollo sees him as much more of a threat. And I like kind of the beat that Apollo gets stuck on, where I won but I didn't beat him. And I like how they set up Apollo to be the heel, where he was very much the main event in the first movie. I think that the boxing is definitely a lot sharper in this movie than it is in the first one. When you rewatch the big fight in Rocky 1, like, it's very clear that the punches aren't getting even close to like Rocky's face. And one of the announcers is like, Rocky's just taken 10 hits, and I was like, wait, Rocky's been hit?
It's very realistic, Colin.
And I think this movie's interesting because it feels much more akin to Rocky 1 than any of the other sequels do, but it is also a middle point where it's like not quite what Rocky's going to become in Rocky 3 and Rocky 4. It's still close enough to Rocky that I think a lot of that depth is still there, and just a lot of the more interesting things that make Rocky an underdog are still there, because he's still an underdog in this movie. So I really like it. at the same time, it does have a lot of similarities and a lot of rehashes of similar things that happened in the first movie. So I don't think it's as fresh or as moving as the original, but I think it's pretty solid nonetheless.
Yeah. The "Yo, Adrian, I did it" gets me at the end. Like,
Yeah.
that makes me feel good.
Oh, I have one gripe though.
Please do. Please say. I want to hear it.
It starts the trend where each Rocky movie starts with the ending of the last Rocky movie, and I hate
I
that
like
so
it.
much.
It's fun. I love it.
The
I love
first
it.
10 minutes of this movie is just Rocky. The fight at the end of Rocky.
Well, you know what? I like the original Rocky, so that's fine.
No, but
I'm
Collin
happy
was
to
like,
watch it
"Oh,
again."
if you."
This is why Nick liked No Way Home.
Yeah. Colin was like, if you've rewatched the fight from Rocky, it's like, oh, you mean the first 10 minutes of this movie?
It is funny. Like, it's just, back when sequels weren't as big of a thing, they have to be like, this is what happened in the first Rocky for everybody. Like, just in case you didn't see it.
Once it leaves theaters, it's gone forever.
Yeah, but now it's like, oh, you didn't see the 27 other Marvel movies? Sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Your loss, I guess. No, I like Rocky 2. It's definitely not as rewatchable for me. I don't know, some of the best movies aren't rewatchable, so I don't know how big of a gripe that is. I think there's a part where, so this is Stallone came in to write and direct this one after John Avildsen kind of directed the first one. And there's a weird thing that in some of the sequels where it just feels like Stallone is just vamping for scenes. Like, there's the kind of the blueprint of the scene, and he'll just keep rambling. And Rocky is a rambler, but I feel like there's there's a lot of structured scenes, especially in Creed or the original Rocky, where it makes a little sense. And I feel like in the beginning of Rocky 2, there's a lot of scenes where you think he's done talking, and you're like, oh, he's still going. He has more things to say. And it kind of. I think it saps a little bit of kind of the energy of the movie and the pacing of it a little bit. But yeah, the ending fight when they're punching each other and they both fall to the ground, they're trying to beat the 10 count. It's so fucking good. It fucking rules.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It really rules. And then Carl Weathers as Apollo. Is this the time where we talk about Carl Weathers? I don't really understand why he didn't have a bigger career. That guy is so charismatic.
Saw my Twitter thread.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Good for you. Nice tweet. I just fucking love that guy. I mean, certainly a lot of it is just racism in Hollywood, and there wasn't a lot of roles for black men at the time. But he is just so charismatic, and you just can't. He is so magnetic. You can't take your eyes off him. He's just awesome. I'm just kind of bummed that we didn't kind of get all we could out of Carl Weathers when he was still young and juiced out of his mind on his roids. I guess we got Predator out of it, so that was kind of fun. But
yeah.
But I feel like we as a society did not appreciate Carl Weathers enough.
I wholeheartedly agree. It's at the end of this movie, Rocky is the heavyweight champion, but Apollo is still the champ, and it's because of just how charismatic Carl Weathers is and everything he does. And it's I think, kind of like I said in Rocky 4, my favorite part of that movie is when he descends from the ceiling with Living in America. But it's just that energy that he brings to even the smallest thing. And we'll talk about a moment. I guess that moment's also in this movie, but it's a moment from Rocky where it's just a little 2-second look that just shows you how good of an actor he is. But yeah, I love everything Apollo does. I'm going to talk about him quite a bit more a little higher up in the rankings.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's what I was going to say is the part where we talk about Carl Weathers is coming up. Don't you worry, Carl.
Is there
Weathers.
water involved?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe.
So I think this movie's solid. On my personal list, where, as you'll remember, Rocky 4 was a lot higher. This was kind of the point of the list, I feel where I start to like the movies a little more. I think this movie has some really interesting ideas, and it's I think the movie wants to be about the fact that Rocky, it almost wants to be a tragedy, I feel about a man who can't do anything other than basically get the hell beaten out of him because he's really good at it. like in the first half you have scenes that seem interesting where he's doing like this commercial and he's just screwing up the line every single time. It's like this really uh interesting scene that I don't feel like really adds up to a whole lot by the end of the movie. Like it's kind of just like becomes the traditional Rocky inspirational sports movie. I also think all this stuff with Adrian getting sick and going into the coma is completely inconsequential, and it grinds the movie to a halt in a way that just like really bothers me. Like it feels like the movie's trying to almost pad the runtime because it's like, oh, it needs to be a little bit longer. I just don't think that that works at all, and I don't care for that stuff. Uh, the training montage here is awesome. Like I really enjoy this training montage.
Nah, fuck them kids.
And yeah,
I'm out on the training montage, but we can get to that later.
and my last note, I took notes on a lot of these movies. My last note is literally just Carl Weathers is awesome. So that's where it wraps up.
Yeah, who would have thought Rocky 2 at the beginning is like an incisive look at capitalism, you know, how we can't improve the labor force, or it's not flexible. Who would have thought? Man, just coming to Rocky movies for all of the great political ideas about us as a society. Now,
It's so weird that it went to the politics of Rocky 4 from this movie. It's like it genuinely, there is some interesting stuff in this movie about that, I would say. So yeah, but
yeah, it actually is pretty good because he goes to the like the job agency and like they're like, sorry, like we just can't help you because you don't have like the resume. So like all jokes aside, like it actually is like, you know, like it shows how people can get stuck and you can't really get your way out of it, and you kind of have to kind of plow forward with only tools you got. I don't know. It is interesting. I think out of the sequels, or I guess in the Rocky franchise itself, I think it is like the most thematically interesting. Even if like I will watch like another sequel that we'll get to in a second, probably way more. So it's kind of how I feel about it. I like it a lot. And then the ending, it you know, it is kind of the sequel thing where it's like we'll do the same thing but biggerer. But you know, it works because the Rocky character is still a grounded character and whatnot. So quite like it.
I love the score in this one too. I think the redemption theme is very high up there on the Rocky music rankings.
Yeah, it's just that's the huge thing about the entire franchise. Like when it's working and it's like when it's going firing on all cylinders, it's just the score is just honestly like it changes the industry. Like how good it is. Like I think like I feel that way about the original Rocky. I feel that way about the like Creed as well. Yeah, it's great. It's Bill Conti. What a guy. But yeah, well, I guess we'll move on to our number 4 pick from there, which I think that brings it back to me here. So I think in the 4 spot, there's 4 movies I really like left, but I'm gonna go with Creed 3 here in the 4 spot. How do we feel about that?
That's not counting the movies we've already talked about. That's where I would have it. So,
how about you, Spencer? Am I in the clear?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I had it.
Well, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I had it one higher than that. I think it's a better movie than one of the movies. But I do
how
really
dare you?
like both movies.
How dare you? Justice for Thunderlips. No, I will do Creed. So Creed 3 was my 5. I had Rocky 2 above it, but as we talked through Rocky 2, I'm kind of feeling like Creed 3 was probably the better movie all along. But I think 4 is a good spot for it.
Cool.
Let's do it. Yeah, Creed 3. Obviously, we've probably only had a chance to all see it once at this point, so I'm curious to see how it ages. But, you know, it just has my guy Jonathan Majors in it, and he's fucking incredible as the villain, as Dame Anderson. Just incredibly believable. He's doing like the George Foreman like cross guard thing, which is really, really cool. Yeah, there's just a lot of different things like threads to pull out of this movie. Obviously, this is the first time we don't have Rocky in the Rocky and Creed franchises, and I think it's all the better for it. You know, we talked about Creed 2 already, but him just kind of going and seeing his son, and you just like assume that he's just still there in this movie, I think is like a perfect send off to that guy. You know, he found his purpose in life again, and now he gets to hang out with his new family after he thought he lost it previously. So yeah, Michael B. Jordan directing this one. It's a true LA movie. And like, you know, like the last fight is in Dodger Stadium, which is pretty cool. It's just, and so much has been said about the anime influence in it already. Like Michael B. just fires up Dragon Ball Z in his free time, I guess. But it really works. It really works well in this movie, and it really is like refreshing because, you know, we are getting to the point where all these movies are the same structure, and you can kind of, the way that you make a good version of these is like you just do something slightly different to the structure to make it work. But yeah, I think having Rocky out of the picture makes this like, it's Creed's movie, and I think they were struggling for whose movie it actually was in the previous iteration, with like Stallone writing it and kind of tying it back together with his family in the end. But I really like this movie. It's super watchable, and Jonathan Majors is just like, that guy is a superstar. Like, I don't like, he truly is like a great combination of being an incredible actor and also an incredible movie star. And him as the villain, like, I love Michael B. Jordan, but he's not nearly as like talented as Jonathan Majors. He just like wipes the floor with him. It's just, he's fucking awesome in this movie. That's kind of, yeah, that's it. Just Jonathan Majors is all you can say about this movie. He's great.
I'll say a little bit about Michael B. Jordan because this is his first time being behind the camera, and I think he does great, like with the direction of this movie. Like, really solid job. I think the fight sequences in this, as you said, highly influenced by anime fight sequences of this movie are awesome. Like, he makes a really interesting choice that you will know what I'm talking about towards the end of the movie. That just feels totally different in this franchise. But yeah, like you said, this is definitely Jonathan Majors' show. Like, he is so good in this movie. It like made me dislike Ant-Man Quantumania even more, just because it felt like they wasted a tremendous amount of talent that Jonathan Majors so clearly has. And this movie like knows that it has him, and it uses him really, really well. I have a complaint about this movie, like a pretty big complaint, and that's that I feel weird that the movie made Jonathan Majors like the villain of the movie. Like, I do think there's a more interesting kind of movie where Creed trains this person like for a fight to kind of prove himself.
I agree.
Like, the movie wants you to root for like the rich champion fighter over the down on his luck guy who got completely fucked over by the system like his entire life. And I felt very weird and conflicted about that watching the movie. And I think the movie wants you to be completely in Creed's corner at the end. And I think it either should have been a little more gray with like thematically about who you should be rooting for and make it more complex, or it shouldn't have gone that direction, just because like I think Jonathan Majors is almost too good of an actor for this franchise. Because like,
seriously,
this scene where he's coming out for his first fight and he's getting like booed, I'm literally like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, pointing at everybody who's booing him, because like I am completely in his corner. And it's like they try to get you to be like, oh no, he fought dirty, but it's like, I don't care. Like, I'm just like, beat the shit out of this guy, prove that audience wrong. And so it's weird that we have a franchise that starts with a guy who's down on his luck. He's the underdog. He's poor. He doesn't have any like money. And in the most recent entry, yeah, we're rooting for a guy who owns like the nicest mansion in Los Angeles. It has an overlook of the city and all that. Like, it's a little weird to me, but I still think this movie's really very good. I really liked it.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, where I was like, is Michael B. Jordan actually the bad guy of this movie? And honestly, I wonder if Jonathan Majors, if you replace him with like a worse actor, do we have this conversation? Because like we said, he's so magnetic. Like, and when I say he blows Michael B. Jordan away, like, I love Michael B. He's a super charismatic guy. He's just not nearly like the level of actor Jonathan Majors is.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
Michael
dude, in this
yeah.
movie, he gets totally overshadowed. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He's, and probably like a lot of that is you know, like him directing and kind of going all over the place, but he is a movie star first and an actor second, and Jonathan Majors is
Yeah.
just like a combination of the two. And yeah, he's just incredible.
That's a
Like
good way of
even
putting it.
he's like it's like the first time in this franchise where you're staring at a guy, you're like, I have no idea what that guy's thinking. Like you can tell that he's like the way he like twitches and like how
Dude.
like he just like you can tell his brain's going like a mile a minute, and you don't know like what he's about to do next. So like that diner scene, which at the beginning of the movie, which I think is really the
so good.
it is really just like that encapsulates the entire movie. Like you're just like, is he gonna leap up and punch him in the face? Like what's about to happen here? Or is he just gonna be not like, or are they just gonna chat? It is just he's incredible. He really is one of a kind. So I think this movie, like, I'm curious if a Creed 4 actually works, you know, because he's already been retired once. So like, how much do you go back to the well again? Unless it's just an Amara movie next time around. But like, I think this movie works just because Jonathan Majors is just so good in it. I cannot get enough of that guy.
Yeah, and I think at a certain point in this movie, they're just like trying to create artificial distance between Michael B. and Jonathan Majors, so that you are like going from, oh, like I've heard Damien's story now, I'm kind of rooting for this guy, to all of a sudden you're like, no, he's the worst. I want Creed to step back into the ring and punch him. So I do think like there is that, but it's interesting because like this is the first movie outside of Apollo versus Rocky where I think you have an antagonist who is like given just as much attention and with an actor who has just as much talent as the star. And so I think it takes the movie into a whole new level that you never really got with like Drago in Creed 2 or with Pretty Boy, whatever his name was, and
Pretty Ricky.
in the first Creed. And I think a lot of that is possible because Rocky's gone, right? This isn't a Rocky legacy sequel anymore. This is Creed's franchise. And I think this is the first movie where it really feels like that. Because I think especially going into Creed 2, like that movie doesn't happen without Rocky 4. And it's very much rooted in things that Creed wasn't even alive for. And so I think this is the first where it's like, this is Creed's story. Here's something from his past. Here's his legacy. Like, this is all his. This isn't, Rocky Balboa Jr.'s. This is Adonis Creed's. And I think the movie works really well in that regard. I think the fights just have a new electricity to them because they're so much more stylized than, anything we've gotten before that. And that's where like a lot of that anime influence comes in. I think even putting it in Dodger Stadium is just a cool idea, as opposed to the usual like Las Vegas casino that the past few movies have kind of fixated around.
Or in Russia.
Or in Russia. So I think there's just a lot of new energy to it that I really like. But kind of echoing what you guys said, like this is Jonathan Majors' movie, almost for the entirety. I love everything they do with Damien. He's great. Like if the rest of the franchise was just like the two of them, like him training Damien and Damien just demolishing everyone, I would happily watch that.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a few times where everyone just like goes behind an actor, like this is the one, and I'm like, all right, let's relax a little bit. And then this time with Jonathan Majors, I'm like the one leading the bandwagon. I'm like, this guy is fucking awesome.
So
I love
good,
him.
dude.
So we're recording this podcast in the middle of March Madness, and there's been an Army commercial that's been playing a lot, and it has Jonathan Majors in it. And every time I watch it, I'm like, do I join the Army? Like what do I do next? So I think that guy is just incredibly talented. Like he really, like he gets like the movie star quality of these movies, but he like really like I said, like that twitchiness and the way he hangs his body, like it's so natural. It looks like to him, like dude. He's so believable as a boxer. So he's the best. I love that guy.
And I think he has more interesting things with a lot of the side characters than Creed himself does. Mm-hmm. Like, I think there's a line in particular where he's talking to Bianca and he's like, how does it feel like listening to somebody else perform your song or something like that. And it's just this moment where he kind of just like cuts her down, but he's still like he's not a bad guy yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think there's just like a lot of really interesting parallels between those two that get explored in this movie, but at the same time they don't get explored, fully, because ultimately that's not Damien's supporting cast, it's Creed's supporting cast.
Yeah. It's just, I like this movie. I'm really curious to see how I feel about it over time. Because, we're all talking about Jonathan Majors, but I am curious if some of the flaws of it come out, but over time, or things we don't perceive as flaws now do over time. But I think it's a very well directed movie. Kind of like, as you mentioned, Spencer, like Michael B. Jordan is a very good director. I thought this was, it's so hard to like do a take on a boxing movie at this point, even if it's not Rocky related. Like they're all, all of them basically are Rocky again, either with imagined characters or real characters. It's the same arc. So it's like, well, how can you do something different? And like making it stylized like this, like it's a really cool choice that could have gone horribly wrong, and it actually works really well to its benefit. So I like Creed 3 a lot.
Have you guys seen Warrior? This
I have
movie's a
not.
lot like Warrior.
Warrior's sick. Tom
so
Hardy.
good.
Tom Hardy just breaking people, then just like running out of the cage each time is the most incredible thing ever. I love Warrior.
This feels like Rocky's version of Warrior, the franchise's version of Warrior to me. Like it's like two guys doing the only thing they know, beating the shit out of each other until they realize they love one another. It
truly is like
poetry.
They have to destroy Tom Hardy's shoulder, or Joel Edgerton does, to realize that.
So like break his arm.
He's like, I fucking love you. God damn.
Yeah.
just punching him in the shoulder. Love Warrior. Great movie.
Okay, but have you seen Real Steel?
Oh god. All right, I'd say let's move on. Let's go to number 3, which I think kicks it back to Spencer.
Yeah, and I feel like my hands are tied in this one, but I'm gonna go with once again the safe pick, and I'm gonna propose that we play Rocky 3 here.
I think that's right. That's where I'd put it. It was 3 on my list.
I don't know if I want to reveal where it is on my list.
Oh. Interesting. I feel like we can't put it over Creed or Rocky. We can't do it, right?
Same. Like I'd be mildly okay putting it over one of those, because once again it's a rewatchable thing. But one of them I definitely do not feel comfortable putting Rocky.
Where was Rocky 3 on your list, Spencer?
Well, as of right now, it's my number 3. I've been deleting as we go, but it was probably like my number 4. I think.
Yeah, I'd say let's do that at 3 because it's a little lower on your list.
I'll seat it here at 3, but I will talk about it like it's in the spot that I actually have it in.
That's fine.
I'm so curious what spot it's at, Collin.
Whatever puts you over the edge, Collin. Whatever works. All right, so we'll put Rocky 3 at number 3.
I want to go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. It's all you.
Well, I want to start off by saying I took notes on these movies, and I have by far Rocky 3 had the most notes, but in like a positive way. This movie felt like the discovery of this series for me on this watch. Like I had such a good time with this movie. I think it's awesome.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's so good. To start, like Mr. T, he is definitely one of the franchise's best villains. Like I love how the opening montage is just Rocky fighting people, and you see Mr. T in the audience just getting progressively more fucking furious. Like it's so good, because it's like I want to see the Ingrid Goes West style movie about Mr. T following Rocky around and obsessing over him and his hatred just brewing. Hulk Hogan's in this movie. There's
Thunderlips.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Thunderlips. There's this bizarre charity match that Rocky does against a wrestler, and
That's
Hulk
so
Hogan
good.
basically plays a feral animal in this movie. Like he just goes completely ape shit and just starts beating up everybody in the entire audience, basically. And it's an amazing scene. This movie also broke my brain. There's a scene where a marching band in the movie is playing the Rocky theme, which sent my mind spinning. Like this didn't keep me up at night because it's like did the Rocky theme already exist in the Rocky universe? Was there like a biopic about Rocky that was written and came out and had the theme and now they're playing the theme? Like it broke my brain in a weird way. Um the scene where Mickey, they like leave him dying in the locker room and decide not to take him to a hospital, but then Rocky, after his fight, he like loses his fight, he comes in. It's like a genuinely touching scene, and Stallone's really really good in that scene. I would
Yeah,
argue like he
he's
does a
good.
really good job in that moment. And Carl Weathers in this movie is the MVP for me. Like once again, like he's so good, and I love how the franchise brings him back in. Like I think it's really fun to have like, you know, the two once foes kind of team up because they hate this new guy so much because he's such a one-dimensional like lunatic psycho person. And
Hey,
I
woman.
promise, yeah, yeah. I promised earlier that I was going to bring up Barton Fink again. This movie joins the likes of Barton Fink and Mulholland Drive in portraying Hollywood, specifically LA, as just like a fucking hellscape. Like it makes LA look like a dystopic nightmare, like the seventh circle of hell. And Paulie's like being a racist. It's just like it's a wild, wacky 20 minutes of this movie that made me like it showed LA in a way that I don't think we've really ever seen it portrayed before. Like it's just like a junk heap, basically.
Yeah, it's a war-torn
So yeah,
country.
yeah, for real. It literally makes it like it's like they go to the third world for a little while and they're just like completely immersed in
Gotta get
just
Rocky back to
chaos
its
and
roots, you know? He's gotta work out around
yeah.
all the rubble.
And then the last thing I want to say, other than I love a good homoerotic montage, which this movie
Oh,
has, uh,
incredible.
yeah,
Incredible.
there's a shot in the last fight where Paulie's holding a spit bucket and Stallone just spits all over Paulie, and Burt Young looks genuinely like rattled and shocked, like he's straight up like I had to rewind the scene to watch it a couple times because he looks just like holy fuck, he just spit all over me. Like it's the best. It's so good. So yeah, this movie's awesome. Love it.
So good. The homoerotic hug in the ocean is like one of my favorite things I've
Just
ever
dudes
seen.
being bros.
Just dudes rock is all I can say about that scene.
In a crop top, like they're in crop tops at multiple points
And
in
like
this movie. It's
when they're
great.
running, it's just like focusing on their junk and like their veiny like quads as they're sprinting across the beach. It is just there's a lot going on there. I don't think Stallone figured out anything was going on there, but there sure is a lot going on in that scene. Yeah, this movie is great. I love Mr. T. Clubber Lang is just incredible. Every fight with him in it, it sounds like Rocky's getting punched by a train. Like, and it's like it gets honestly, it's like even better than like the Indiana Jones punch scene that they're just like so loud, and you're like, God, like this guy could like destroy like punch through a wall or something. It is so funny. And then he's just like yelling and like sweating profusely the entire time. Yeah, as I led this podcast, my prediction pain is like one of my favorite like
It's
lines
so
ever.
good.
It's
Yeah.
and he breaks the fourth wall as he does it. It is just the best thing. Yeah, this is like I think this is like the perfect combo of like I still kind of care about Rocky as a character, and it's also just like ridiculously entertaining. Like yeah, like out of the it was funny because when we were talking about like yeah, like Rocky 4 is a movie that I kind of watch sometimes. I was in my head I was like, "Oh yeah, I think I watch Rocky 3 a little more because it's just there's so many great moments in it." And yeah, you got Hulk Hogan just throwing children and babies or whatever he's doing in that scene. And then afterwards he takes the picture and he's totally fine and it was all an act. I'm like, "Oh, this is just the greatest movie ever." Yeah, and this is the movie where I think Rocky learned how to use steroids because he's just like yoked or like a kind of like disgusting degree. Um, but yeah, I think for me it just comes back to the Clubber Lang, like that, like he's just such an amazing force. Um, as an actor, he's just used in all the right ways, and like you said, like the opening montage where he just gets mad and more mad is
It's
just
so good.
it's so funny, and I love it so much. And by the time you see him fight, you're like, oh shit, this guy's gonna kill somebody in the ring.
And I love how like the franchise is just like, we're just gonna take a villain now who's just irredeemable scum. Like he's just like the worst person. Like no more shred of depth like Apollo Creed had. No more charismatic Carl Weathers. Like it's just gonna be an angry man. Like just like yeah, it's so good. It's
Yeah, and
amazing.
everybody hates him. Like every time he talks, everyone's like just like
He's
screaming
booed.
back at him.
Yeah.
It's so good. Colin, what are your thoughts on Rocky 3?
So I made 2 lists for this preparation. I made one where I tried to be objective, and I was like, if you gave everything like letterbox scores and points, like this would be top dog. Rocky 3 was a little bit above the median in that one, but unashamedly, this is my favorite Rocky movie. I love Rocky 3 so much. Clubber Lang is just kind of the greatest thing ever. Like I love Rocky 3 so much. This is the movie that like when I think of Rocky as an adult, this is like the movie that I'm like, hell yeah. Like everything about this movie just works for me even when it doesn't. I do like Clubber Lang is just so high up there on my Rocky villain rankings. I think he like embodies what Rocky and Apollo each hate about the other person, where he's like this know nothing underdog who gets the shot, but then he's just this unbelievably cocky like asshole who dominates the ring. And Mr. T's just great. Like he's basically just playing like a louder version of himself from the A Team, but he's just fantastic. That part where he's just like at the press conference and Rocky's retiring and he just like starts hitting on Adrian. And he's just like,
hey woman. I love it.
Yeah, he's got away with the ladies for sure.
I can't stop. It is just so good.
Clubber Lang's got to be a sensitive lover.
Yeah, it's like the full 180.
I mean,
right, guys? Yeah.
He's the most sensual, like, caring lover ever.
But I love Clubber Lang. I think he's a great antagonist. I really like how much of a circus the first like 30 minutes of this movie is, because I feel like the franchise as a whole is kind of self-aware of what point it's at. Like I think this is the first one where I would consider this like a blockbuster. Like not that I mean they didn't really have blockbusters like we have them back then, but the first one like this is like a tentpole. Like I'm coming for these specific things, and I think it delivers like on all of the triumph and the montages and all that. But I just love how insane it gets in that fight with Hulk Hogan. I love like you know how in like season 4 of a TV show you can see that like oh they've all made a ton of money now because everyone has lost like 20 pounds, they're not balding anymore. Like Stallone just looks like a completely different human than Rocky looks like in 1 or 2. Like he's lost the accent. He's just so much more chiseled.
Yeah, like all of like the like his face is completely like thinned out. Like he looks like an entirely different person.
Yeah, you're like, why does he look like that for like the first 20 minutes of this movie?
Yeah. I'm like, did he like? Does that something happen to him? I'm like, oh no, he just learned the ways of steroids.
Yeah.
No, there's just so many little great bits in this movie. Just I forgot about when Apollo is teaching Rocky how to like proper footwork, and he's like dancing right behind him. In the mirror.
I was waiting for him to grab his waist.
Seriously.
Like, I was like, come on.
It is so erotic. It is so it is so funny. Yeah, the entire time I'm like, you guys just gonna kiss? Like, please. Like that would make this the greatest movie ever made.
Yeah, it would be my number 1 if that happened for sure.
And then they would kiss Clubber Lang after the fight too.
Great. That sounds great. This is our remake of Rocky 3. It's all coming together.
But like my main I really only have one complaint with this movie, despite how much I love it, is it feels like the first half of this movie is bloated with too many things going on. Whereas like you're trying to build this idea of like Rocky, like he's become too comfortable. He's basically become like what Apollo was walking into their fight in the first movie, where he's like become the fat cat, and he's like, I don't really need to give this much concern. Like it's just a fight, and he ends up losing. But I feel like when you're jamming the death of Mickey, like literally right into that fight as well, you're taking away a lot of like the hubris of Rocky, whereas like he's losing this fight because he didn't take anything seriously. Whereas like, oh, it's not his fault he's losing, Mickey's dying, and like, Rocky was really like had the heart of he had the eye of the tiger the whole time. He was just distracted.
Yeah, I forgot how many times they say "Eye of the Tiger" in this
Oh
movie.
yeah,
it's like literally
egregious.
It's the thrill of the fight.
Just every time Carl Weathers looks at Stallone, he's like, "Eye of the Tiger, Eye of the Tiger." And I'm like, "Oh, I forgot there's actual line in the movie. I totally forgot about this." No, I love this movie. It's so fun. It's so good. Just the montage is just. It's oh my god. There's so many. It's wonderful. Just truly, it's just true cinema, as Martin Scorsese would say. Why don't we move on to number 2, which is where I think things could get pretty interesting. And this is Collin. So we are down to Creed and the original Rocky. And so what would you prefer in the number 2 spot?
I'd say Rocky 4, Rocky versus Drago, the ultimate director's cut.
I forgot about that. You've seen it?
No.
Oh, okay. I think there's no robot in that version.
That's
I
what
believe so.
So I'm not interested in watching it personally.
Yeah, so that makes it number 10 on our list.
You can't improve upon perfection. Yeah.
This one's hard for me. I changed. So I had Rocky 3 in my favorite number 1 spot, but 2 and 3 was constantly, and even as I speak now, I'm still like, did I make the right choice here? Between Creed and Rocky, but I put Rocky as the underling in that ranking. So
I agree.
I'm gonna put Rocky in at number 2.
I'm with you.
100% with you guys as well.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I love it.
Tiger.
I love it. I'm totally with you, and I guess we'll talk about Creed in a second, but I love this. So, Rocky, what is there really to say about it at this point? I don't really know.
I talked about this a little bit before, but I think like Rocky is just so endearing because he's just such a goober in this movie. Like even, he's kind of, almost like a mob enforcer.
He is. His role model's a loan shark. It's incredible.
But he's just so boyish about everything, and there's a part where he's like, "I told you to break his hand." He's like, "Well, he was really trying," and like, just like how much Rocky cares about this place that doesn't really care about him at all. Or you look at like little Marie, who becomes a huge part of Rocky Balboa, but like here's this little girl, like he doesn't really know, like she does not care about him, doesn't like him at all, but he's still trying to like be. It almost feels like the adult Rocky is like a boy trying to be what his version of an adult is. And so you have like Rocky who really cares about so much that's going on, and I think his relationship with Polly falls along a lot of these lines where he's really trying to like be there for these people, and they just kind of walk all over him and they want to use him, and his big shouting match with Mickey about halfway through the movie really encapsulates a lot of that, where like Rocky's this down on his luck guy. He's putting it all out there, but nobody like wants anything to do with him until they can get something out of it. And I think that makes his relationship with Adrian a lot more sincere too, because she's one person who doesn't really want anything from him. At first she doesn't even really want anything to do with him. But she's the one person who can kind of like appreciate Rocky for Rocky and not want money or fame or what have you from him. And I think just this is the only time where he genuinely is an underdog. He's got a pretty poor boxing record at the beginning of this movie. He's fighting in like back rooms. He's a loan shark's enforcer. Like things are not going great for Rocky. And to watch him just, he doesn't win the fight at the end, but he doesn't get beaten. And once you guys talk on it, I'll talk a little bit more about that final fight at Carl Weathers. But I'll let you guys cover Rocky a little bit before that.
Yeah, Spencer, go ahead.
Good movie. Like of course I like Rocky. Um I think that what this movie does like incredibly well is set up this really, I guess in the hindsight of knowing that this becomes the franchise that it does a great job of setting up a really endearing, like kind-hearted, genuine person. Uh Rocky is like a character that I feel like everybody who watches these movies would at least kind of like and want to root for, just because yeah, he's just like a genuinely good guy. And even though he occupies kind of like, shady areas of being like a enforcer or whatever for the loan shark, um yeah, the big problem that I have with Rocky, the first movie, and then kind of it stays with me throughout the series, is I just don't really like fall in love with the romance in the way that the movie I think wants you to. I think that the movie is a lot more interesting as like a character study or even as a boxing movie than it is as a romance movie, and so as a result some of the scenes feel a little bit awkward and like they don't have chemistry for me, which is why my number one movie on this franchise is a different movie than Rocky it. But yeah, no, it's great. Like it's totally deserving of its status, and I would definitely like say that it it's like Sylvester Stallone working as a writer in his most effective and best way, like compared to the other entries
Absolutely.
into the series. It feels so much more grounded, and it's just bizarre watching this movie knowing what this franchise goes into. And I think
Yep.
that the sequels kind of make this movie worse in retrospect for me. It's
Definitely.
weird. So yeah, like that's kind of where I stand on Rocky.
Yeah, this was the first time in a while I'd gone back to it. I love this movie and I always have, but you do like this is one of those movies where everything that came after it, and obviously it's just so influential, it changes like what you actually remember about the movie. And then you
Yep.
forget like, oh yeah, like there isn't like the training montage isn't until like an hour and a half into it almost. It's like an hour and 20 is when the training montage is. And before that it's just kind of they've got like a street level, almost just basically a crime movie following Rocky, and it's just I love it. Like it is truly like you were mentioning like how hilarious this franchise becomes. It's just like this you can like follow the line from like 70s naturalism all the way through to like 80s like cheese, like, and you just see it right through like the Rocky movies. Like this truly like this and Rocky 3, like it's crazy to think about that these are like in this like the same franchise, or even Rocky 4 for that
It's
matter.
so bizarre.
And it's
Yeah.
bizarre because this movie is just he's just like it's just about a guy just like walking around the streets and just trying to figure out his life. And I kind of like I I feel slightly differently about Adrian than you do, Spencer, where I think in the rest of the movie is like I don't like their relationship is whatever, but here I feel like it's really good. And like these people can't articulate what they want out of life. Like there's a lot of things that are going on where they just want happiness and like they want
Mm-hmm.
security, but they don't know how to like say that or get to it. And I think there's a lot of like what people would probably call awkward now, like when like Rocky's trying to make those dumb jokes, and it's like they're just
Yeah.
people like they're genuine people who are trying to connect but don't really have the faculties or know how to, which is kind of why I really appreciate like a lot of the interactions in this movie. But yeah, and I always forget that he only fights Apollo because Apollo is like, I need to make money. I needed someone who I can just beat the shit out of so I can get my money that I was supposed to get for this fight. Like it is, like this movie is like deeply cynical in a way that makes its like inspirational like message like actually feel like real. Because like in a 2023 version of this movie, like there'd be some like bullshit reason why the guy gets to like fight in the end or something like that. They would like really like bend over backwards to make that make sense. In this movie, it's like, nah, he's just some guy that the rich guy needs to beat up on, and it's so good. It's so good. Yeah, like his like the loan shark is his only role model, and it's like genuinely like you could make the argument that maybe Rocky isn't like a great person. I mean, I love Rocky, but like, you know, like where he stands in the world and he's trying to figure himself out. Like there's a moral gray there. But yeah, I love this movie. I don't really have much more else to say about it because obviously it's just such an influential movie. It's like talking about Jaws or Star Wars, you know? It's a really good movie. It's really good.
Yeah, I think I think Apollo Creed is just such a good character in this franchise, and in this movie in particular. Kind of like you said, because like on the page and what he actually does in the movie, like he just wants to exploit Rocky. Like he's no different than
it's a marketing ploy. That's all it is.
Else.
It's incredible.
But Carl Weathers is just so charming that like you can't help but love him as he's like coming into the stadium like in a George Washington Valley Forge outfit. And just being this insane over the top showman, and it feels really authentic to like a character from, you know, like the WWE or like from kind of that classic idea of like boxers or wrestlers or professional fighters in general, where like he's very much a showman. And I think Carl Weathers is just perfect at that kind of thing. At the same time, I think he brings a lot of humanity to a character who could have been just that showman, who could have been a lot more like Hulk Hogan was in Rocky 3, or even like Clubber Lang. But there's a moment, like there's one specific moment that I'm just like captivated by, and it's where it's in the last fight and Apollo has knocked Rocky down. He thinks he's won the fight. He like gets up and starts to like hype up the crowd again, and like Rocky does his slow like climb up the motif of gonna fly now plays a little bit in the background, and then there's just like the biggest look of like disappointment but also like fear and also like what the hell is this guy doing on Apollo's face as he turns around and is like, this fight is still going on, I can't believe this.
It's so good. Yeah,
it's incredible.
One of the best moments of the Rocky franchise from Apollo right there.
It's really good. I always forget too that there's like no music for like forever. Like the first like actual score, like there's like a few like piano riffs in there, but the first score is the montage, and then you're like, holy shit, I will like run through a wall after watching it. It's like so well earned in a way that like modern movies just wouldn't do now, obviously, for like pacing and like keeping audience like, sorry, go ahead.
We're about to get to one that teases and holds off really well.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah.
You're right. No, you're right. It is. Yeah, but I just like it really is. It earns every like. I'm typically not like. I kind of like hold my emotions like strong like whenever I'm in a movie that's like trying to get me to like feel inspired or whatever. But because most of the time it just doesn't. It's not earned. But here it's like it earns every bit of it, and it's really good. And I think some people now would say Rocky is a little slow for their taste, which is like. Yeah, it's not cut like a movie is now, but I think it's all the better for it because it really just kind of lives with these people, and you know, like it uses like the boxing gym is like the only place these people have hope in this broken down Philadelphia. So it's just really good. I love Rocky. Hot take.
Yeah, for real. Nobody loves Rocky.
But yeah, we'll move on to our number one pick, which. Obviously is Creed, which I'm really happy that we picked this as our number one because it's kind of been a take that's been brewing for me for a while that Creed is actually the best movie in this franchise, and it wasn't only until this time around where I was like, yeah, it definitely is. This movie rules. Everything about it is incredible. Ryan Coogler is a god. He was like 29 when he made this movie, which is just ridiculous. Yeah. Creed, it's just kind of one of those things we can get into particulars, obviously, but everything about it works for me. It is one of the best, like, modern blockbusters in my mind. So, yeah, I'll open up to you guys. I just think this movie's great.
I don't know. I feel like requels are everywhere these days, or legacy sequels, or whatever you want to call them. I feel like the Rocky franchise kind of did it first. I think Rocky Balboa, you could make a strong case that that's like another legacy sequel. But then I think Creed is just such a standout. And I think it does get a little bit overshadowed by other franchises that were starting to do this kind of thing at the same time, because like this was the same year that Force Awakens came out.
And Mad Max Fury Road,
yeah.
which is the best Lego sequel of that year, in my opinion, by far. But I do love Creed.
Debatable.
Are you sure it's not Texas Chainsaw?
Did that come out in 2015?
No.
Okay, I was talking about that came out 2015.
Okay. But no, I think, and Spencer talked a little bit about this earlier, but they managed to do pretty similar things with Rocky's character that they did in Rocky Balboa, but it feels just so much more intimate. It feels less showy here. I feel like when I'm watching Creed and you're re-entering this world, and I think it helps that you're re-entering through Adonis, who is literally entering into the story at this moment in Rocky's life. I think it helps just bring a lot of the grounding that Rocky lacked after Rocky 2 back into the fold. And I think, this movie plays with legacy a lot, just knowing how big of a character Apollo Creed is in this world. And it doesn't beat you over the head with, what Apollo Creed's life and death means, kind of like Creed 2 does. But it is a shadow that hangs over Adonis for, most of the movie. And it leads to these really touching moments between, him and his mom, and him and Rocky. And I think like the legacy and like the prowess that Apollo had in the ring just brings a lot of ego to this character in the beginning of the movie. To the point where he just gets shut down the first time he hops into the ring. But it brings a lot of hubris to him that I think Rocky had become so mythical that this franchise had kind of lost it. And I think Creed brings you right back down to that gym in Philadelphia, and you're like, all right, like we're starting from scratch here. And Coogler's direction, Ludwig's score is just incredible. Like I don't really have anything to complain about Creed because it's just so good at everything it sets out to do.
Yeah, what about you, Spencer?
This movie's amazing. Like, it's so fucking good. Like, yeah. So I'll start actually on the score because I think the score is like the best aspect of this movie, but that's like,
yep,
this movie is full of best aspects of the movie. And I think that in the same way that the original Rocky, we were talking about how it kind of holds off on using the score for such a long time. This movie like weaponizes the Rocky theme in such an awesome way. Like when it finally, you're like waiting the whole time for it to come, and then when it finally comes, it's like literally one of the most euphoric scenes I've seen in a modern blockbuster. Like I was so taken by this character, this portrayal of Rocky. I already mentioned how I low-key kind of hate Rocky Balboa, and this movie feels kind of like it is kind of like, okay, we're gonna take the few good elements of Rocky Balboa, sprinkle them in here, but make a younger character kind of take the reins of this franchise.
Definitely.
Which is a great idea, because in my opinion, having old Rocky fight in Balboa is catastrophic on every level. But on top of that, you have this character of Adonis Creed, who is the child of, arguably in this universe, the greatest boxer of all time. And the movie somehow makes him like an underdog who you really want to root for. Like, I think having his character has a really interesting arc in this movie where he is, kind of not certain he even wants to take that name. The legacy of his dad, he's like conflicted about, and he's trying to like prove himself. Like one of the most emotionally, like I think the best emotional moment in this entire series is like that final or the final fight. He's like, I have to prove to everybody, and
so
Rocky's
good.
like, what? And he's like, that I'm not a mistake. It's like such a gut punch of a moment. And it's like when he stands up and he like fully embraces that he is a Creed, it's like one of the most like just Oh, it's so good.
Fucking
And
rules.
it's like,
It's so
yeah,
good.
this movie, like Nick talks about how, oh yeah, when the Rocky music comes on, it makes you want to run through a wall. This movie makes me want to like just go do pull-ups, like an amount of pull-ups that I cannot do. You know, it's like I feel so hyped by this movie, and I think it all the secret sauce of it is honestly Ryan Coogler. Like
Absolutely.
Mhm.
he brings a grounded feel to this, but he also does the bombastic moments so well. It's like this really fine line you have to walk, and I feel like he does it in a way that the franchise, like it's the height of what a blockbuster movie can be, even if Mad Max Fury Road is just slightly better. But it's an amazing movie. I love it so much. Like I think that it's just incredible on every front. Love it.
Yeah, and even in that last little bit, it's the like I'm not a mistake, and then Stallone does the "I love you,
Oh,
kid," and you're like, "Oh my god!"
oh,
And
it's
then the
so
Rocky
good,
theme
dude.
comes in,
Yeah.
you're like, I will destroy everything that is in this man's path. I want all
Oh,
the great things for
it's
him."
so good, dude. Yeah, it's like it's just like builds and builds and builds. Like you're like gutted by that line, and then it just somehow takes you even higher on like the emotions train. It's just so awesome.
Yeah,
So
the movie it is one of the things where if you would like explain it, it is something that you could see as like a little like it's a little like it's a little sickly sweet, but it just every bit works perfectly, and that it really is Coogler's direction. Like we got to get this guy away from Marvel. Like I just need him to make another
oh,
movie.
dude,
Like
for
that's
real, for
like
real.
like he it is incredible what he does in this movie. Like and even like the editing too, like every scene is perfectly paced and it ends at just the right point, and it gives you everything you need to know about what that scene is supposed to like entail for like the majority of the film. It is just, and then yeah, then Meek Mill comes on, and then I levitate out of my body, and then and then the final fight is just like it's amazing. Like there's just yeah, I could go on. Like I listen to the score all the time. Like even like the little bits where it's like the little like piano slowed down version of the Rocky score that it brings out sometimes during emotional moments is just awesome. And then it really is like all the stuff about a legacy sequel that I hate that is actually done in an amazing way that somehow works. Like it's like one of those things where it's like people who have this IP, they're like, we'll do like our Creed, except you're not going to because you don't have Ryan
Mhm.
Coogler. It's great. And then yeah, then we're walking up the steps together at the end. I'm like, this is just the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. No, I really love it. And then we haven't really mentioned Tessa Thompson much, but she is awesome. Like really, really good. A character that can go wrong probably in the wrong hands. Like you could like I think her music's actually really good. I don't know if that's a hot take or not. I like
No,
listening
it's
to it.
good.
I don't know. But
Cool.
like I feel like the singer girlfriend in a boxing movie that can go wrong in so many different ways, and she's just
Yeah.
such a good actor. That
This movie
yeah,
should not work. That's one thing
it should
haven't
not.
said.
Yeah.
Like if you were to say to me, yeah, it's the Rocky franchise eventually became about Apollo Creed's bastard son who like gets trained by Rocky, uh like falls in love, yeah, with a singer girlfriend who's going deaf, then I'd be like, oh my god, like that sounds like a disaster. But in like the hands of Ryan Coogler, it just really shines. It's so fucking good.
Yeah.
I wanted to say real quick, you mentioned like listening to this score. Like when I ran my marathon, I had the Conlon fight slash Yura Creed lined up for right when I'd be
Let's go.
finishing. Yeah, it was like I needed that hype up. Like it's so good. Like oh, it's just such a great score.
I definitely have run to the montage music like a few times in
Oh
my life,
yeah,
and then yeah,
so
then
good.
the Meek Mill comes in, and I'm like, all right, I guess I'm just sprinting this last quarter mile. I guess
For real,
I
it's
guess it's
so
gonna
good.
happen.
The
Um,
the end credits, like "Gonna Fly Now" remix, is right up there for me.
It's
it's great.
awesome.
It really is like I remember I saw this in theaters, and it was a packed house and everyone was going nuts at the end. Like it was one of like my favorite like movie experiences, and it is one of those movies that it's genuinely entertaining, genuinely emotional, and it just it's like, it really is like everything like a blockbuster or like just a popcorn movie, like for that's supposed to be consumed by as much people as possible. It's everything that it should be, in every way. I love it. There isn't even like a scene I would take out of it. I just love this movie so much. Yeah,
Yep.
fucking rules. That's Creed.
We love Creed.
It's a really good movie. But yeah, that's the end of our rankings. I feel good about it, but I'm gonna run through it again one more time for us, so then we can kind of get to our little lightning round here, and then we can head out of here. But so at number 9 we have Rocky 5. At number 8 we have Rocky Balboa. At 7 we have Rocky 4. At 6 we have Creed 2. At 5 we have Rocky 2. At 4 Creed 3. I'm afraid I'm gonna like mix these up. I'm actually really impressed. At 3 we have Rocky 3. At 2 is Rocky, and then 1 is Creed. I feel pretty good about that list. I think that's pretty solid.
Yeah, I like how the 2s and 3s and originals are all like together.
It is funny. I think it's good, but yeah, Creed is such a good movie. I can't get over how good it is.
For real.
It's really, really good. But yeah, before we get out of here, this was actually Colin's idea. By him, we had to do a quick lightning round, because I feel like the Rocky franchise really is defined by the montages, the villains, and the fights. So we're gonna run through this very quick. So Collin, for the first lightning round question, this is a quick answer. What's favorite villain?
Prediction? Pain. It's got to be Clubber Lang. He's so good.
How about you, Spencer?
Yeah, my head says Dame Anderson, but my heart says Clubber Lang.
I'm the exact same way. Mr. D is the best. I love it. All right, next one. We'll do our favorite montage. Collin, what's your thoughts?
I'm gonna go unhinged. I actually really like the montage in Creed 2. I just love him like doing stuff with tires and hammers in the desert.
I love it. Spencer, how about you?
Carl Weathers, Sylvester Stallone, Rocky 3. Homoerotic montage. That's all I need in my life.
That's amazing. For me, it's either the original Rocky or or Creed. I'm gonna have to go with Creed. I just fucking inject the Meek Mill stuff into my veins. It's incredible. It's so good. And like the quick pad stuff that they do in that movie is just so cool.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Whoever that guy is, that they found to do that. I think he's just like a local like Philly like boxing like guy, and he's just awesome. Just really, really good. I love that stuff in there. But yeah, that's probably, I go with Creed as my favorite montage. That's a good one. And then finally, we'll do our favorite fight. So Collin, what's yours?
I'm going with the only final fight that doesn't become a montage at some point, and that is the unbroken Rocky Clubber Lang rematch. That just, it's quick, doesn't go the full 15, so they don't jump around. It's just solid punch each other till somebody goes down.
I like it. Spencer, how about you?
The final Creed fight for sure. Like,
yeah,
just
I'm
like
with you.
On it, everything about that fight is perfectly executed. So
I don't know. Just I love you, kid. It just gets me every time. I'm like, God damn it! Stop making me cry.
So good. Oh God.
That's it for me. Yeah, Rocky. There's a few good movies in here. These are fun. Any overarching thoughts before we get out of here?
I think
No.
This was the viewing where I like fell in love with Rocky as a whole. Because I had seen all the Rocky movies. I think it would have been like either early pandemic or soon after Creed 2 came out. But this was the first time where I get it, and I'm like, and maybe it's just because I'm tired of like the usual nonsense that we're getting right now. But it was just like, I just wanted to run and like lift weights and just punch things. I was like, maybe I could be a boxer.
That's truly this franchise's power.
I'm just on cloud 9 watching, like even something that I didn't like Rocky 4 or Rocky 5, like my eyes, like I'm just glued. Like I didn't miss a single frame of Rocky 4. I think that's just a testament to the power of Rocky.
I feel like the one thing we did dirty in this podcast is Spencer with Rocky 4. So I'll give you the floor. Do you have any more thoughts on Rocky 4 you want to get out?
I mean, it's the lady in the water of this podcast. What can I say? You guys really like dropped the ball on that one. Like you need to rethink what you did to our. It's like basically at this point it should be the national anthem. Like, oh God. No, I don't have anything else to say about Rocky 4.
We really did talk about it a lot.
You guys let me down.
Yeah, no, this franchise is just fun. Like we said, there's so many different paths it takes. It's just bizarre that Creed is really that emotional after all the sequels that there are with Thunder Lips. Who would have thought? But yeah, do we hope there's a Creed 4? Do we hope this continues?
I would like to see Ryan Coogler like do his version of Rocky 4, but for Creed 4.
So who does he fight? China? Like a Chinese boxer? How does that work?
At this point, would it just be like another American fighting Creed?
I don't know.
We'll Russia. Russia seems to be the fun world bad guy again, but they've done Russia. North Korea.
Love it.
Yeah, that's it. That's the answer. It's like Creed versus Odd Job, but the Rocky version.
Kim Jong-un just stands up and claps, and then North Korea becomes a democracy at the end of the movie. I love it. That's amazing. Well, I think that about does it here for us with the Rocky franchise. I had a lot of fun talking about it with you guys. But yeah, that's it. Rocky franchise. A lot of fun movies. But yeah, thank you to all for listening. We really appreciate your support. And you can check out more content on the website, moviebabble.com. But yeah, until next time, thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.